Chairman. Ambassador, put on your Wayback Machine hat. We were dealing with Syria, once part of Transjordan, once owned for 600 years by the Turks. Turkey's influence today is renewed and significant. Is that fair to say?
It is, but it is an Arab country in an Arab Middle East, and there are inherent tensions between Turks and Arabs. Yes, sir.
But some of the things that we're seeing in Syria seem to be affected by Turkey. In other words, the treatment of Kurds seems to be a common denominator. For example, Turkey's inability to deal with or unwillingness to deal with minorities being treated fairly within Turkey seems to also be a similar problem in Syria today.
There have been problems in the past. I would say that over the last 15 years, particularly in the last 2 years, there has been an extraordinary reconciliation between the Kurdish population and the Turkish government. We see this with the actions of the Kurdish party in the Turkish parliament and the cooperation on a ceasefire. Now, what the Turks have asked for, and it's reasonable with the Syrian Kurds, is because the Turkish government has long had an extremely close relationship with both the Barzani and Talabani Kurds in northern Iraq, and I've been witness to that over decades. What they want is for the Syrian Democratic Forces leadership to sever their ties with the PKK and accept the larger ceasefire that is being worked with Öcalan. In fact, Öcalan, the leader of the PKK, who's in prison now, has called for the Syrian Democratic Forces to do that.
So it's fair to say that one of the impediments that Syria faces in its reunification is, in fact, coming up with a way to deal specifically with a minority that identifies itself throughout what once was Transjordan plus Iraq. Fair enough?
Absolutely, but it's actually two minorities, the Druze in the south and the Kurds in the north, and of course smaller ones that we've mentioned today. But I would say the biggest and the biggest project that we're looking at, and it covers Iraq, Syria, Turkey, and to some degree even Iran, is the Kurdish one.
Well, as somebody who has visited with the Druze in Lebanon many, many times, I was quite surprised, quite frankly, to see what occurred with the Druze. But you're right. I should have included that in Syria, their plight is different by far than it has been as one of the many confessionals in Lebanon. Well, I asked those questions and asked you to put on the Wayback Machine because you're the institutional memory here. You and I have known each other for years. Decades ago, Western powers made a decision to split up these countries, to put them in certain orders, and they've been in turmoil ever since. Is it fair to say, and the most important question I think for all of us on this committee today, that as we look at Syria, while looking at 1 million refugees in Egypt, percentage-wise, the largest percentage of a country as far as refugees is still Lebanon with the massive amounts, even after the Syrian withdrawal. Jordanians still have a large amount of integrated and semi-integrated refugees. That the State Department and this committee need to look at a holistic approach that goes from Iraq to Turkey, from Turkey all the way down to Egypt, and that if we look at Syria in a vacuum, and we don't deal with these broader problems, we will be back here again, as the doctor said, and we'll be looking at, well, where's our agency to stabilize or fund this, rather than did we have a plan to help this region recover fully, not just one country?
I agree, Congressman, but I would make one point. We've been able to do that successfully in Europe with the help of our European partners and in East Asia, where I began my military career. We haven't in the Middle East because of the tremendous forces of disorder and violence. That's why in my statement I pointed to the fact that for the first time, the Iranian proxy network throughout the region has been largely defeated, and Sunni Islamic extremism with the defeat of ISIS is also, at least for the moment, largely off the table. That is a prerequisite for us doing in the Middle East what we've been able to do with our partners elsewhere, so I'm optimistic.